I talk a lot about game changers. I talk a lot about things that really set me free or Samantha free or changed our recovery work. And today is more of the same. Today is one of the most important lessons that I can give you, especially for the unfaithful, but it relates to the betrayed. That is the concept of denying your reality. Denying your reality is such an important construct in repair work that on day one of the EMS weekend, Rick stands up in his first lecture for couples and talks about the 6 barriers to recovery for both spouses, and one of them is denying your reality. Our therapists at the EMS weekend oftentimes will say, few things hinder the repair or the restoration of an individual or a marriage like denial. I mean, denial is a cancer that there is absolutely a cure for when it comes to repair work and personal restoration if you're willing to take the medicine. But I assure you, until I started to accept my reality as an individual who was unfaithful, and until Samantha accepted her reality as a betrayed spouse and the reality that had been dumped upon her, until we both had those moments, we were train wrecks trying to get through one of the most overwhelming, excruciating experiences that we had ever been through. I was in denial about a lot of things. I was in denial early on about how far-reaching my choices had reached and impacted. I was in denial about the extent of how I had just completely destroyed Samantha in so many ways. I was in denial about what my choices had done to our little family. I was in denial about how deeply I had destroyed so much of me. You see, I was also in denial about how unhealthy I was. I was minimizing my choices, minimizing my affair, minimizing what I had done to both Samantha and so many other people. I was in denial also, even as we started to get help, because I was in denial about what I was capable of. And let me land the conversation right there for a moment. As long as you are in denial about what you're capable of, you're not going to be safe for your partner or your spouse. Until you can admit what you've done, until you can admit what you're capable of doing, and it's funny that we will kind of deny what we're capable of doing when we've already done it. So what we resort to is saying kind of really stupid things like, look, just trust me. Or, look, it's different this time. I'm going to try harder. Hold on. I made a commitment. I said I'd do. I said I would remain faithful to you forever, and I blew that up. I absolutely did not do that, was not faithful. And so I've completely destroyed trust. I've had an affair or affairs, or I'm involved in an addiction behind your back. But now I'm simply asking you to just trust me again. Just let me work even harder. Look, I've already broken a promise, probably the biggest promise I've ever made, which is marriage. And now I'm simply asking you to trust me again, or trust my own efforts again, or trust in my rugged individualism or my integrity, which is in shambles. But no, you need to trust me. I'm sorry, that's denial. As unfaithful spouses, we are not safe as long as we subscribe to these illusions that we are just going to flip the switch and never do it again. Or that I was a different person then. I'm different now. I'm sorry. No, you're the same person. Yes, okay. I will give credence to the fact that you have, for some of you, had this spiritual awakening. Maybe you had a significant decision of life-changing submission to Christ, or to some religious or spiritual component, you've had an awakening of some sorts, and you say, look, I'm different now. That was the old me, this is the new me. Great. I'm not going to doubt that, but I am going to say you need to show it and prove it. And it's not about just saying what you're going to do. Talking is not healing, although there is a part to healing which requires you to talk about your feelings, talk about your pain, maybe even talk about your struggles internally and even childhood issues. But as a whole, talking is not healing. Actions display healing. You see, until you're willing to admit to what you're capable of doing, usually indicative by what you've already done, you're not safe. As long as you pretend that you haven't done what you've done, or pretend that that was a different person, or pretend that it wasn't that bad, you're not safe. You're living in denial. You are denying what you've done, denying the ramifications of what you've done, denying the state of mind that you were in, that you made the choices that you made. Until you're willing to admit that you have a dark side, until you are willing to admit that you made the choices that you made, until you are willing to admit what you're capable of doing, you're not safe. You see, owning where you're at, accepting where you are at, accepting who you are, who you have been, and who you can be, is indicative of the fact that you are no longer playing games, no longer living in pretend normal. You are owning the reality of your choices, owning who you can be. That doesn't mean that you can't own the fact that you believe that you can be better and do better and be a better man or woman. Absolutely. But you're going to have to reveal that over time with actions, with consistency, with integrity. And if you're an unfaithful, you've blown that stuff out of the water. It doesn't mean that you can't rebuild it. I promise you that you can rebuild it. It's absolutely possible to rebuild it, but not with merely words, with actions. I digress. We're talking about denial today. You see, denying your reality puts you in a cage that, quite honestly, in my situation, made me look foolish. Because I constantly wanted to deny what was indicative and in plain sight. My life was in shambles. I had affected thousands of people, none more important than Samantha and my 3 children. And I kept minimizing or trying to minimize Samantha's pain. I was in denial of how much everybody was suffering. Now, that doesn't mean that I had to just embrace it all and commit suicide. No, but I had to embrace the reality of who I was and what I was capable of doing and get help. You see, when we own our reality, we'll get help. When we own our reality, we'll get expert help. When we own our reality, we'll stop being so defensive and minimizing and justifying and blaming and simply say, you know what? I'm unhealthy. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be unhealthy forever. Doesn't mean that I'm just giving up on myself, but I'm giving up on having a better past. I'm giving up on trying to maintain this image, which everybody around me can see is crap. I'm going to own the fact that I have screwed up. I'm going to own my reality and get help. Maybe it's time for you to see yourself as you really are. Maybe it's time to stop trying to dress up your actions through blame. Maybe it's time to accept who you really are, because until you can accept who you really are, you'll never be able to get to who you really want to be. And if you'll accept what you've done, if you'll accept the ramifications of what you've done, you can start to gain some ground. You can start to get healthy. You can start to become that new person that you so desperately want to become.